something that constantly surprises me, the fact that even supervillains seem to be obsessed with procreating and passing down their legacy. You'd think most of them would be too busy to have kids. To some supervillains that do have kids, it turns out they are just that, which brings about problems later. But just because their lifestyle isn't suited to raising children, it doesn't mean that any of these villains felt compelled to shy away from taking on the responsibility of bringing a new life into the world, which is unfortunate for their kids. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the worst parents in comics as we count down the top 10 worst supervillain parents. Number 10. Thor. I know what you're thinking, but Thor isn't a villain, Amanda. Well, on the alternate Earth of 3515, he kind of is, actually. In this reality, Thor became the conqueror of Earth, where humans were looked down upon as being inferior to their Asgardian leaders. Thor had a son named Magni, who was actually a pretty decent sort. Magni fell in love with a human woman, and upon discovering this, his uncle Loki, also demonstrating what a terrible parent he himself could be, had Magni's love interest arrested, not believing the woman worthy of the young prince's love due to her being human. Magni had been suspicious of both his uncle and his mother's obsession with power, and this was the final straw for him. He saved his love, but the experience had already left its mark on her. Magni went to his father, berating him for allowing his mother and uncle to behave and carry on this way. Initially, Thor resisted seeing reason, but eventually realized the error of his ways. Rather than fix it, however, he made changes so that the events of this alternate reality had never come to pass, meaning Magni was erased from existence. Harsh. Number 9. Baron Zemo. Of all the fathers, Baron Heinrich Zemo is probably one of the best on this list, though that obviously doesn't mean that much. Heinrich was a German World War II scientist working on the side of the Axis. Like many of the other German soldiers and minds that fought for Germany in World War II, he believed in the idea that he was part of a master race, and to a greater extreme, that it was the Zemo legacy who deserved to rule the world. He passed on these beliefs to his son, Helmut, who would one day grow up to become a villain just like his father, also known as Baron Zemo, perhaps even worse than his father. Originally, Heinrich was not a bad father despite being a villain. However, after his accident with Adhesive X, where his cowl became affixed to his head permanently, which Heinrich blamed Captain America for, he became a truly spiteful man, not just hating the Captain and the Americas, but all of humanity. At one point, Heinrich Zemo had abandoned his wife, and Captain America and Bucky actually had to help her track him down. Number 8. Deathstroke. Deathstroke's problem is that he hardcore wants to pass down his legacy, and that sometimes his kids go crazy and are put through hell because of it. Rose and Jericho, Slade Wilson's kids, have both had their lives threatened countless times because they were Deathstroke's kids. At one point, Deathstroke threatened to disown his daughter, so Rose plucked out her eye just to prove herself to him. Talk about wanting to be like your dad when you grow up. Yikes. My dad doesn't have an eye, so I won't have an eye. That will show him I'm serious. So crazy. Deathstroke also accidentally forced both Jericho and Rose to swear fealty to Ra's al Ghul and the League of Assassins when he made a deal with Rage to save Rose's life, but was tricked. Number 7. Mystique. Mystique has proven time and time again how awful of a mother she is. She is constantly conceiving and then abandoning children, because even she acknowledges she's not really fit to parent. When Nightcrawler was born, she checked him down a waterfall in order to help ensure her own safety. When she discovered she was pregnant with Graydon, she didn't tell Sabretooth, his dad, and faked her own death, only to later give him up for adoption. With Rogue, she actually tried to be a good mother, but also ended up being ostracized by her daughter because she was such a horrible person, and later on would end up trying to seduce Rogue's boyfriend, Gambit, to prove he wasn't worthy of Rogue's love. Wow. Even when she's trying to be a good parent, she's pretty terrible at it. Number 6. David Kane. David Kane is the father of Cassandra Cain, aka Orphan, one of Batman's allies. She was born to two pretty awful parents, as far as parenting goes, Lady Shiva and David. David only wanted the child to create the perfect bodyguard and weapon for his master, Ra's al Ghul, the leader of the League of Assassins. He forced Lady Shiva to agree to become the mother to his child, hoping together they would create the perfect being for the task. Lady Shiva was offered a choice once caught by the League, either die or father agree to become the mother of his child. She agreed, but left after her daughter was born. From there, David would train his daughter mercilessly, forbidding her to use verbal language or to write, but instead having her favor body language as a means of communication above all else. He trained her to become a ruthless and deadly killer and exposed young Cassandra to tons of violence and death to desensitize her from a young age. Eventually, Cassandra managed to escape her father, running away and making her way to Gotham, after living alone and homeless from age 8 into her teen years. Number 5. Cluemaster. Cluemaster is the villainous father of Stephanie Brown, who would go on in current continuity to become the hero and Batman ally and sidekick known as Spoiler. In fact, Stephanie got her name from her dad. She grew up not knowing of his true life as a criminal, but one day discovered that her father was not a good man. Feeling responsible, she took it upon herself to become a hero to oppose him, becoming Spoiler. Because, she's gonna spoil all his evil plans. Now, you could argue that at least her father sent her down a righteous path by being a villain himself. However, he also tried to kill his daughter multiple times. So, there is that. Number 4. Azazel. If you thought Mystique was bad, wait till you hear about Nightcrawler's other parent, his demonic Nephim father, Azazel. 1. Azazel never really even loved Mystique, but merely found her more intriguing than his other consorts. Despite the fact that she ditched their son almost immediately, tossing baby Nightcrawler down a waterfall, Azazel was never even there when Nightcrawler was born, believing Mystique would be fine on her own. That was a bad choice there, Azazel. Of course, Azazel at least has the excuse of being partially trapped in the Brimstone dimension, but this is also the whole reason that he has kids. He seeks out human women because he is looking to have children, which he can use as a means of escape, as they create a bridge between the hellish dimension in which he is trapped and the Earth. He has even tried to sacrifice his children before to escape this prison. Number 3. Mr. Sinister. Not only is Mr. Sinister a pretty awful parent to all the clones he's created and creatures that he's created in his labs, but before Mr. Sinister was Mr. Sinister, he was Nathaniel Essex, a Victorian gentleman and scholar, obsessed with Darwinism. He posited that there was a superior subspecies among them who was mutating and evolving at a faster rate than your average human, and that within 100 years we would see radical and superior changes made to this subspecies via evolution. What he was really talking about was mutants, though he didn't quite know that yet. Essex did not believe in being held back by morals when it came to scientific development, and his wild theories and beliefs led to him being ostracized from the scientific community and London society. All of his radical beliefs had only been made more radical after he and his wife had lost their son, which they both took very hard in their own way. Their son Adam had died as the result of being born with many birth defects. The name that he took later, Sinister, was actually inspired by his wife, who ended up dying of shock after discovering that her husband had captured vagabonds and homeless people and was experimenting on them, while also keeping their son's corpse in an incubation tube, possibly experimenting on his body as well. Granted, Sinister may have been doing this in an attempt to bring Adam back to life, but a lack of morals does not a good parent make. Number 2. Norman Osborn. Poor Harry, and even more poor Gabriel and Sarah. Norman Osborn has never really known how to be a great father. He was never really present for his son Harry when he needed to be, and was exceedingly controlling when he was there. And Norman became an even worse parent when he became the supervillain known as Green Goblin. Hobgoblin attempted to use the information that Harry's father was Green Goblin to try and blackmail him. Harry's life was also put in danger on multiple occasions because of his dad's supervillain lifestyle. Following the supposed death of his father while in his Green Goblin guise after he had murdered Harry's friend and Peter's girlfriend, Gwen Stacy, Harry became obsessive. He blamed Spider-Man for his father's death, and after learning the truth of Peter Parker's secret identity was driven mad and adopted his father's Green Goblin mantle. So his dad kind of in this way turned him into a superhero. Harry tried to tell other people what he knew in regards to Spider-Man's identity, but was institutionalized with people believing that Harry had gone insane. Gabriel and Sarah were Norman's children by Gwen Stacy. Don't even ask. Despite the fact that he had killed their mother and was their father, he raised the two children to believe that Spider-Man was their father and that he had killed their mother, turning the two of them into villains to be used against Spider-Man. Definitely not winning any parenting awards, Norman. Number 1. Trigon. Much like Azazel, but on a much more frightening level, Trigon is the demonic father of Teen Titan member Raven. He is the reason that Raven has her dark magical powers, and he is the reason why she can be such a dangerous hero at times, when she loses control of her emotions. Trigon, like Azazel, also planned to use Raven as a way of getting to Earth. Raven's whole mission in life is to defeat her father, preventing him from completing his evil plans, and to in essence rid herself of the demonic darkness that resides within her, which comes from her dad. Trigon is constantly trying to trap and eliminate her colleagues and friends on the Teen Titans, and continues to work toward enslaving and corrupting his own daughter Raven, a whole level of grounding no child should ever have to experience.